gone to the Donnie and Marie Christmas show at the Target Center in Minneapolis just before Christmas. Reflecting on the concert, my sister said the highlight was Marie singing a song from an opera. Nessun Dorma, she said, was the name of the song. And she said it was the boys' favorite, and her boys are in college. Deep emotions stirred within me when she mentioned that song. Nessun Dorma was one of the brass choir songs that we played. And I remember just upon hearing the emotions that it stirred and the emotions that came as we played that song in brass choir. You know, I'm sure our director, Doc Krieger, had told us the story that surrounded it, but if he had, I had long forgotten it. So I decided to look it up, not remembering what the piece would have to do with Christmas. And what I found had some powerful connections with our gospel for this evening. This dark piece of the Christmas story that is not portrayed in any manger scene. Nessun Dorma is from the final act of Puccini's opera Turandot. And if you're not an opera fan, don't worry about it, I'll fill you in. A story is set in China about a beautiful princess, Princess Turandot. She is beautiful, but cold. Any man who wished to wed her, she demanded, must first answer her 3 riddles. If he failed, he was to be beheaded. Caliph, a prince from a territory just conquered by the princess, but unknown to her, comes on the scene as her latest suitor is being beheaded. Caliph falls in love with Turandot and strikes the gong 3 times to declare his intention to be her next suitor. In the act before Nessun Dorma is sung, Caliph has correctly answered all 3 riddles, put to all of Princess Turandot's prospective suitors. Nonetheless, she recoils at the thought of marrying him. Caliph offers her another chance by challenging her to guess his name by dawn. If she does so, she can execute him. But if she does not, she must marry him. The cruel and emotionally cold princess then decrees that none of her subjects shall sleep that night until his name is discovered. If they fail, all will be killed. Nessun Dorma means none shall sleep. In the night, Caliph is alone in the moonlit palace gardens, and in the distance he hears Turandot's heralds proclaiming her command. And so his area begins with an echo of their cry. None shall sleep, none shall sleep. Even you, O princess, in your cold room, watch the stars that tremble with love and hope. But my secret is hidden within me, and my name no one shall know. No, no. On your mouth I will tell it when the light shines, and my kiss will dissolve the silence that makes you mine. And just before the climactic end of the aria, a chorus of women is heard singing in the distance. No one will know his name, and we must, alas, die. Listen.
Guardi le stelle che
But this is where the slaughter of the innocents, our text for today, came to mind. Those innocents who are made to suffer needlessly simply to give someone power or assuage their fear. It's worth reflecting on how this story and our gospel story intersects with our lives. Who are we in this story? That of our gospel and that of the opera. In what ways are we made to suffer needlessly so that someone can feel powerful? Or that their fears are assuaged? Is there someone in your life, your family, your community, that everyone tiptoes around or walks on eggshells around for the sake of peace? While it is kind to be sensitive to one another, those persons can become manipulative with unhealthy behaviors that need examination, love, and gentle confrontation. Conversely, we, members of one of the richest and most powerful countries in the world, most often can relate with Turandot or Herod. We, with our consumerist society, often cause others to suffer needlessly so that we can produce or buy products cheaply. Whenever we receive a service we do not pay adequately for, someone is hurt in the process. Beyond money, whenever we use our words to cut someone down, making them worth less, whether they feel it or know it or not, we are Turandot. We are Herod. What other ways do we cause others to suffer because of our fears? What fears do we use to justify keeping ourselves separate from one another? And yet, powerfully for me in this story, Turandot is loved. Loved deeply. Loved at great cost and at great risk. Loved by one she finds repulsive, even. Loved by one she is afraid will take away her independence, her power, and her life. And so are we. We are loved deeply by God, loved at great cost and risk. At times, we too find God to be not to our liking, too forgiving, too mysterious, too all-knowing, too demanding. Often we value our own desires, our own independence, our own abilities. We have a hard time giving up the power God asks us to relinquish, to trust God and to trust one another. Like Turandot, we hold on tightly to that which we believe is life, too afraid, unwilling to trust God to bring new and better life. Turandot refuses that love, and often so do we. Yet Caliph sings on, "Vanish, O night, set, stars, set. At dawn I will win, I will win, I will win." In the opera, it is night again. People are waiting. It's an advent all its own. Morning is near, and Caliph's grave has already been dug in anticipation of his death. Or perhaps it's in hope of his death, rather than the masses of people Turandot has threatened to take. When Dan and I traveled to Israel 12 years ago, we saw a number of significant sites in Bethlehem. At one point, we were brought down into this network of natural limestone caves to see the place where tradition says Jesus was born. Not far away in these caves is another place that is marked, not by joy, but by sadness. There is a place in this cave set aside as a tomb where some 20 tiny skeletons have been found. Tradition says it's the burial place of those innocents. Two people that were seen speaking to Caliph earlier were found and brought to the Princess Turandot. They refused to reveal their identity or that of Caliph's, even though tortured and threatened with death. One was his father. The other, his father's servant, a girl who had always loved Caliph. Turando asks the girl just before she dies what strength keeps her from revealing Calip's identity. And startling to the princess, she says, love. Love. The prince tries to convince the stunned Turandot to love him. At first she is disgusted, but he kisses her, and at that moment of his love becoming incarnate, of becoming flesh, something begins to change in Turandot. She asks him to ask for nothing more and to leave, taking his mystery with him. The prince, however, reveals his name, Caliph, son of Timur, placing his life in Turandot's hands. She can now destroy him if she wants. Caliph allows Turandot the power to win. He has the power to force her into marriage, but relinquishes it to her, to choose. God became human in order to show his love for us, in order for us to experience his love and presence in a whole new way, that we would know the healing that is in God's touch, that the emptiness in our stomachs and our hearts would be filled in real ways, that we would feel, remember, and trust, that we would see God's power to love and forgive even in the most incredible circumstances, and that we would see God's power to give life even after death. And yet, like Caliph, God would not demand that we believe. He does not force us into a life of love and mutual service. He simply asks. He chooses us, and he lays his life, the power for us to choose him, to love others, in our hands. Our tomb is waiting. The tombs of others are waiting. Yet God loves us, forgives us, and kisses us. Light has dawned. The stone is rolled away, and God waits for us to respond, to follow. When Turandot declares to the crowd she knows the prince's name, she declares, "It's love." And the crowd cheers. With one word, all know that she has had a change of heart. The night is indeed vanquished. Light has come, Caliph wins, and so does Turandot. And so does the community. Will you choose life, the life that God is offering you, invites you to? Or will you continue in your independence, not trusting, not believing, not loving, and not living? Will you choose to remain in your tomb, to condemn others to their grave? The light of God's love shines in the darkness. The light has become flesh, and the deepest darkness has not overcome it. In the bread and wine, God has become flesh, embraced us, forgiven us, and loved us with the sacrifice of his life. He has kissed us with light. No darkness can overcome it. Will you trust God's love? Will you set aside your fears? Will you share your life with him? Will you love him? Will you love others?